In Dungeons and Dragons, or at least 5th edition, there was a class known as the Ranger. One who is a skilled huntsman, skilled in survival, skilled in taking down specific opponents, skilled in specific knowledges. Now that is great and all. There's just one problem. I hate the Ranger. I hate it. In 5th edition, it's a trash class. It's not good. The Ranger in Dungeons and Dragons is my least favorite class for the reason that it just doesn't work except for when multiclassing. And I, as a multiclassing main, don't even use Ranger in any of my multiclass combos. If it is a good class, it shouldn't be because of a multiclass combo. And I do constantly hear this argument, what about Gloomstalker? The Ranger should not be good because of 1 or 2 subclasses. Being a subclass-oriented class is a good thing in my opinion. It allows for flexible maneuverings of character build. The Cleric, for example. Well, it could technically work without a subclass, and that's also good. It is specifically designed around its subclasses, and gets its playstyle from its subclasses. And I love this. That right there, is what makes it my favorite class. Even so, I still multi-class a lot, though. But in order to do this, more than half of your subclasses have to be good. Not 1 or 2 or 3, even if more than half are mediocre at least. Not average, but above average. The subclasses must compensate for the class being mediocre, or even trash, when on its own. This is why the Ranger, Player's Handbook and Revised, in 5th edition, is just bad. And also, to the argument of the Gloomstalker, in D&D, broken does not mean good. It can actually screw over the experience for other players, not allowing them to have a fun time in combat because, bam, it's over, done, gone. One player did everything, hogging the show. The other players got to do nothing. So for Ranger to either be broken or bad makes it an awful class overall. People commonly justify it, too, saying that the Player's Handbook Ranger is bad, or that you need to grab from the other books, which I do agree, it is better. But it's just whipped cream on a cow pie. Still shit. This is in their own words, too. They just don't realize it. The Ranger class itself is from the Player's Handbook. So to say Ranger PHB is bad is to say Ranger is bad. By the way, this isn't even mentioning the fact that the subclass names absolutely suck. I'm sorry. But well, I'll get to that later. So, is this just going to be me trash-talking the Ranger? No. Because I still think it has the core idea of a good class. I still think it can be salvaged. Now, for that matter, technically you could just play light fighter or heavy rogue. But still, Ranger itself as a class can work. And my remedy to that is not a quick fix. After a month and 1 day's worth of progress, I finally finished working on what I am calling Pixel Forge's Improved Ranger. This, at least, is an attempt to try and fix the Ranger. Not by fixing it the way the Revised Ranger does, where they still go by the same idea of, oh, you have to be kind of sectioned off into this one area, but rather to make it actually a viable class. Now, all of this I did on a bet with a friend. A friend who likes gambling a great deal too much. all of his D&D characters have that flaw of gambling. Well, most of them. To be fair, all my characters had a drunken habit, and up until that same point that he stopped playing gambling characters, I stopped playing drunken characters, which was like when we started knowing each other. But anyways, allow me to introduce you to Pixel Forge's Improved Ranger. So the first thing I did when I started making this class was to go to my OneNote, copy over one of the templates that I had made for class making specifically. And mind you, I did alter it a little bit later because the template, I made it a while ago and it wasn't really that good. But anyways, clicked, highlighted, and hit backspace on the spell section of it. This was simply because I do not feel like Ranger should have spells. Because you wouldn't hear a fighter or rogue naturally having spells in their class, would you? Now, this, to be fair, with the player's handbook or revised Ranger, it was a balancing method to make it actually possible to play at all. I found a way to fix that, and that's by making it an actually good class. Hopefully. I mean, I haven't playtested it yet, so that's what I'm relying on you guys to do, actually. Anyone who watches this, as in. So, to begin with, I kept a few things the same. They still have a D10 for hit dice. They only gain proficiency with light and medium armors, alongside shields. Weapons proficiencies wise, I did change this up a bit because they only have simple weapons, and on top of that I gave them any type of ranged weapon and light weapons. So basically weapons with those specific types of traits. For tools, I gave them the woodcarver's tools, which actually only comes up for one specific ability later, and I forgot to kind of incorporate it into the rest of the class. Now, saving throws wise, I changed it to Dexterity and Constitution, because we don't need another class that is Strength and Dexterity based. When I open my calculator, and mind you, I learned this trick specifically recently in school in a math class, but when I press the PRB button on the calculator, it gives me 30. 30 possible combinations between two of any of the 6 ability scores. Now, put simply, this means that for each class in D&D, there's a possibility for them to have the option to pick from 2 ability scores twice, having extra options for each class to have 2 you could pick from. So why do so many overlap? Anyways, for skills, I dropped the skills down from the 3 skills to 2 skills, gave them most of the same skills that they got before, but also gave them an automatic proficiency that does not count for any of these 2 skills with perception, which can be switched out for any other wisdom skill if you already have proficiency with perception. For equipment, I basically gave them the option of picking between a longbow or a heavy crossbow with 40 ammunition, and two containers to hold that ammunition, or to pick any ranged weapon, but with only 20 ammunition. So basically, you can have a gun if your DM allows it, but like, but why? You can have a gun if your DM allows it, but you only get 20 ammunition with it, and a singular container to hold that 20 ammunition. You get a short sword and a dagger, or a hand axe and a sickle, or a spear and a shield. As a ranger, you're not likely to be fighting specifically humanoids all the time, so you might as well have equipment that has other functions that covers more area. So like with a short sword and a dagger, I mean, short sword would be for fighting humans, I guess, but that'd be like self-defense. And a dagger is, it's a knife. It's useful for anything. A hand axe would be useful for chopping up wood, and a sickle would be useful for harvesting stuff. And a spear and a shield are just useful hunting equipment. I mean, the shield isn't always required for hunting. It's definitely not usually, but I mean, it's nice to have a shield. That was more so just on the kind of thought of spear and buckler. A reference, if you know where that reference comes from. But anyways, and then you get either leather armor or a chain shirt. Now, here's the thing. With a regular ranger, you get scale mail. This gives you disadvantage on stealth, which, if you're playing by Boring Player's Handbook rules, means that you have to subtract 5 from your roll, but if you're playing by the rules that everyone, let's be honest, uses, you roll twice and take the lower roll. I think that was, like, from 3rd edition or something. That is not at all a necessary debuff for getting a better armor. Now, the reason why I say this, think about it this way. Leather armor, you get to add your full dexterity bonus to, because it's a light armor. Chain shirts, however, don't have disadvantage on stealth, and I chose it for that reason. You get to add your dexterity bonus, but it caps out at 2. So basically, it grants the opportunity to either pick the one where if you have higher dexterity, it will be worth picking, or if you have lower dexterity, it'll be worth picking the other. And it does balance out, because if you have a +2 in your dexterity with a chain shirt, it roughly equals out to leather armor. I think leather armor, if you have a +5 in dexterity, goes a little bit higher. But basically, I think this is already balanced in and of itself. Why'd you need to throw in the armor that has a stealth disadvantage, where stealth is key to hunting? Anyways, that's the end of most of my rants for that section. That's the equipment proficiencies, skills, and stuff. Now we get on to the actual features. At first level, you get 3 features. You get Hunter's Home, which is the subclass feature. Quick Companions, which is my solvent to removing Beastmaster entirely, and replacing it with something better in a single feat. And Focused Fire. The Hunter's Home feature basically gives you the opportunity to pick from several subclasses, which includes the following: Aquatic, Cave, Cursedland, Desert, Forest, Mountains, Plains, Tundra, and Underdark. Now, I know the Underdark's not in every world, and that's why I didn't add it at first, but one of my friends argued that I should add it. You gain features from these subclasses at 5th, 11th, and 15th level, alongside level 1. Quick Companions. Basically, if you find a creature beast type, you can make an animal handling check, at disadvantage if the animal is aggressive, and if you succeed, the animal will follow you around and assist you in simple ways. You can direct it as a free action on its own turn, which I know can get hectic, because at first there wasn't any cap on this. There's a cap on how many you can have at once now. I might have to put a cap on here for how many free actions you can take in one turn. But anyways, basically, you can do this an amount of times equal to your con modifier per long rest, and the animal will disappear after your long rest, unless the Dungeon Master states otherwise. And some creatures simply cannot be tamed, so make sure with the DM that the creature is tameable in the first place. The DC is determined by the creature's challenge rating, which is listed on tables. Focused Fire. You use your bonus action before your ranged attack to remove disadvantage from firing at the long range of your bow. You can't do this if you've taken damage on your previous turn. Moving on to level 2, we have Hunting Technique and Tracking Adept. The way I was going to set up the Hunting Technique thing was originally going to be at 3rd level, more similar to the Warlock's Pact Abilities feature, where it's like Pact of the Blade, Pact of the Chain, Pact of the Tome. This feature was basically going to replace that, and so it was going to be like first level, you get a subclass. 3rd level, you get a special feature that's kind of selective. It's like a mini subclass. However, I decided since it kind of aligned with... It aligned in at least description and at first With the fighting style, I replaced fighting style with hunting technique at 2nd level. You developed a hunting technique that allows you to do a specific ability, and that can be picked from the following: Beastmaster, Joy of the Chase, Overwatch, Surprise Arrow, Trapper, and Tricky Diversion. Beastmaster basically buffs the Quick Companions feature. Joy of the Chase allows you to put away your equipment to run 10 feet faster. Now, mind you, I specifically, after my friend mentioned it, tried to discourage Sword Ranger, so that's why you don't have proficiency with too many melee weapons anymore, alongside the fact that later in the class there are more range-based abilities. But anyways, Overwatch. Basically, you can't opportunity attack at melee range. The one player I talked to about this whole class, most of the other people were DMs or former DMs, got really annoyed about this. Well, fuck off. I'm not. I don't care that you can't. It is balanced that you cannot opportunity attack at melee range, because the rest of this feature literally allows you to opportunity attack at range, provided they exit or enter the normal range of your bow. Alongside, at later levels, the ability to shoot them if they move a certain distance or shorter as a reaction. Surprise Arrow. Basically, you just stand still, and that allows you to concentrate to have advantage to hit, and you also deal an extra die of damage. And this damage die increases at various levels. Now, the funny thing about this, and I didn't really realize originally the difference this made, because I didn't think about the fact that there are ranged weapons that deal more than 1 die of damage. It was originally going to be you double the damage, and it triples, and such, and so on. I removed that after a friend pointed out, and I didn't really understand at first, but I understand now. Basically, if your weapon deals more than 1 die of damage, that gets really insane really quickly. So yeah, this acts more like a critical hit, if anything. Trapper. You use a hunting trap as a bonus action, which is detectable on an investigation roll against a DC that is based on your dexterity ability. When someone triggers it, you can take a free action to fire an arrow at them. You can do this up to 2 times per round, which is increased at various levels. And additionally, hunting traps weigh 2.5 pounds for you instead of 25. Now, here's the thing. My friend at first thought this was a typo, and they completely understand why. I didn't believe it at first. Hunting traps are 25 pounds. What the fuck? I get it maybe for like 10 pounds or something, but 25 is fucking ridiculous. Anyways, this also implies the ability to make better hunting traps than other people. As in, make them in such a way that it weighs less. And finally, Tricky Diversion. This is funky magic thing. You can use an innate arcane magic to cause a distracting noise to originate from a specific spot. At 1st level, at 5th level, cause a distraction as a reaction to getting attacked. And at 11th level, pick a target, and they start hallucinating, which grants them fear towards everyone. It doesn't allow them to commit bonus actions or reactions. And at 15th level, shoot an arrow that will explode. That deals a little bit of extra damage, but just can be used just like the distraction one at the 1st level, except at the range of your bow. And you could do any of these abilities a certain amount of times per long rest based on your wisdom. Oh, right, and just one more thing before I move on to the next feature. Anytime it says fire an arrow or use your bow or blah 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 blah, that is just including any other ranged weapon. I just didn't want to change the text. I got lazy. And that's specifically physical ranged weapons, not magical ranged attacks. Dear God. If I made that magical ranged attacks, holy crap. Tracking Adept. When you find a creature you need to track, you realize you can track them for some reason. Maybe it's the mycelium in the ground, the roots of the tree, or blah 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 flavor text. Basically, when you bloody someone, and that is to knock them down to half health, you can use 1 blood mark, which blood marks you get a certain amount per level. Basically, It's a better version of a 4th level spell, which is why I had to reduce the amount that you get, as a friend pointed out, because you get this at 2nd level. Basically, though, you know the general direction of where they are at, and stuff like that, permanently. And basically, anyone who has a blood mark on them cannot have that blood mark removed until they're killed, or have a wish spell to remove it. Basically, this does not allow you to use that blood mark more than... Basically, you're not able to use the blood mark if it is locked on a person, because it is permanently locked on a person until they are dead. At 3rd level, you get Primal Sense, Remedied Quick Fix, and Bombardment. Primal Sense. Basically, you have the ability to find something strange in a biome. And when I say a biome, I mean the region you are in specifically, not just that same biome on the other side of the planet. Basically, it works on a magical blight. When a spell is being cast or aberration, you roll at advantage, blah 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 blah. And you can do this while taking a short or long rest in spare time. Additionally, you can sense another ranger when you are doing this, if they are in the same biome as you. But it has to be this class, not the player's handbook or revised. And also you roll a double advantage at 11th level, which is basically just roll 3 times and take the higher. Or plus 10 if you're boring. Remedied Quick Fix. I made this as like a little joke earlier, talking about this. I said, and my remedy to this was not a quick fix, because it took me a while to make this class. Basically, you have advantage on medicine checks to stabilize a dying creature, rendering them stable, but unconscious on success. You can do this again to a stabilized unconscious creature a turn after you stabilized them, or they were stabilized in general, to heal them of a certain amount, and bring them back to consciousness. However, they can only move at half speed until they take a long rest. You can also make remedies that cure natural diseases, infections, or viruses. However, it doesn't work on magical or city-specific ailments. And you have a certain amount of quick fixes you can use per long rest. And only you can use quick fixes. Your allies cannot. You can do this an amount of times that's listed on the table. I think I might have already mentioned that. And if another ranger does this to you, you're only healed half the amount. I put this in place so you can't ranger stack. Or ranger stack this class anyways. Bombardment. Basically, action surge, but bow. You get your standard ability score increase. At 5th level, you get 2 features, Natural Knowledge and Free Range. Natural Knowledge. You can instantly tell if something is poisonous, or if something carries a disease or parasite. You also know how to cook it in such a way that removes the disastrous effects, the right fuels to use for smokeless fires, how to make fires for different jobs, such as fire baking clay rather than cooking food, and how to cleanse any water of bacteria. And by that I mean in the simpler D&D sense of bacteria. Additionally, you gain proficiency with the nature or survival skill, or expertise if you already have one of those and you pick the one that you already have proficiency with. Now, originally, Free Range was going to be an optional replacement to Natural Knowledge, because Natural Knowledge is useful specifically in survival campaigns. However, I decided to fix that by adding on to the end of Natural Knowledge the proficiencies and such, which aren't exactly the best, but I mean, Free Range should make up for that in general. Basically, Free Range. You get to add 25% onto the end of your bow's range. That goes for both the normal and the long ranges of your bow. Additionally, you gain a trait from your Hunter's Home feature related to this, which might improve your bow's ability, your arrow's abilities, or grant you some other ability. At level 6, you get Relentless Pursuit. Basically, you're able to push through severe wounds if you're within 45 feet of a blood-marked creature, as in blood-marked by you. When within this range, you do not fall unconscious when hitting 0 HP or going below that. The only thing that will make you fall unconscious by this point is if they move outside of the range of 45 feet, or if they take the long route and decide to deal double the amount of damage equal to your health. As in go to your health, but in negative numbers. Which will instantly kill you no matter what, because that's the general rule of D&D. You have advantage on all con saves when you are like this, and you are temporarily immune to exhaustion effects. After they die, or move out of that range, you collapse, fall unconscious, regaining all tiers of exhaustion alongside an extra one, even if you had no exhaustion in the first place. And if you are below 0 health and in the negatives, unless stabilized, you will go on to death saves. And the range increases at certain levels up until when you reach 20th level to 90 feet. Then you have an optional rule for this. Kill or be killed. As long as the blood-marked opponent is within 180 feet, you remain alive. However, this comes at a catch. In order to stay alive, you must either deal or take damage. If you fail to do this for one round, or they walk out of the new range, you will collapse, and normal rules take effect. You can also add your Constitution modifier to your attack rolls when in this state. At 7th level, you get Camouflage. You have found the best way to hide. No magic, no strings attached. When hiding, you gain advantage on stealth, and anyone attempting to track you has disadvantage on perception. You cannot be detected by true sight, as this is not magical in any way. Only creatures with a tremor sense or a form of heat sight, not fire genasi, can detect you. I had to reword this one a little bit because my friend said that none of this really mattered, and when I look at it though, I think it is important to say that it doesn't matter if you have true sight to detect this because it's not a magical thing, just for clarification at least. Sidestep. At 18th level, you have gained a great deal of reflex. Basically, when you have your bow out or a weapon with a light property, you can take half the damage as a reaction. You can do this an amount of times, equal to proficiency bonus per long rest or short rest. This is kind of a mimicry of a rogue feature. At 9th level, you get Know Your Foe. Yes, I know this is normally this kind of thing is normally the first level feature for a ranger. However, I don't care. Let's just say it took this long to learn your opponent. I mean, it kind of says that in the feature anyways. Basically, pick 3 creatures. Examples are amethyst dragons, frost giants, zombies, illithids, humans and part humans, goblinoids, etc. Not creature types, but specific groups of creatures. So, like, not too specific. Like, it's not like if you pick this, you only get amethyst, like, baby amethyst dragons, or zombie hulks or anything like that. No, you get the whole group of them. But you don't get the entirety of dragons, or you don't get the entirety of giants. That's just ridiculous. At least with the amount that you get at later levels. With these creatures, you gain the following benefits. You double your proficiency bonus on attacks against them. You can add your Constitution mod to your AC when getting attacked by them. And you have advantage on Dex and Con saves against them. You have advantage on all intelligence checks on them. By the way, it took me 3 times to say intelligence right there. On information about it, alongside perception, survival, and intimidation checks against it. You can sense when they are nearby, within 5 miles, and when within 120 feet of them, they count as a blood-marked creature. If they speak a language, you can understand them, even if you don't know this language. This doesn't mean you understand the people nearby who are speaking conversation with it. And basically, you can switch out known foes when you level up in this class, and the number of known foes increases at certain levels, as shown on the table. At 10th level, you get Skillful Shot and Specialized Arrow. Skillful Shot. Basically, you become adept in the bow to the point that you have special things you can do with the bow that serve different purposes. Cautious Shot. You can use a bonus action to hold an action. This held action can be triggered under prerequisites set by you on your own turn, such as if an enemy moves. Upon being triggered, you fire your bow at advantage. Long Shot. You double your ranges. Quick Shot. You make a ranged attack as a bonus action, following another ranged attack. Strong Shot. You add your strength mod to your attack roll and damage roll. Spam shot. You fire 3 arrows in a area of effect kind of ability, but if you target the same creature more than once, you roll a disadvantage. You do not suffer from disadvantage if an enemy is within melee range while doing this. And warning shot. You fire at disadvantage. If you miss, you get advantage on your next turn with double damage on hit. On hits, you roll regular damage as applied, and nothing else happens. If you roll a nat 1, you miss and nothing occurs. If you roll a natural 20, you can choose if it hits or misses. And if one of these are performed, you cannot perform them until your next turn, even if you failed your task. Specialized arrow. You fire an arrow that has a specialized effect on its tip. You can make an amount of these arrows equal to your con modifier plus proficiency with woodworking tools. Right, this is where the woodworking tools come in. Because I finally remembered that I put that on the tools section here. Basically, you get barbed arrow, which they have to remove it or they'll take damage when moving. If they remove it, they take extra damage. If they fail to remove it, they take damage. It's a fuck you arrow. Basically, the enemy faces a poison that you tested on yourself, and if they fail, they take a certain amount of poison damage, equal to your con mod, take regular damage, and suffer the poisoned effect. Solvent arrow. You shoot an ally. They take half the damage, and they receive an ability on their next turn to use 2 of their hit dice as a bonus action. Now, you see, this is a bit of a gamble here. And I wish I hadn't said that, because that friend who I made this bet with is probably going to try and be gambling with this all the time, which is going to be hell in the campaigns I'm in with him. Basically, don't do this to a wizard, though. Vaccinating arrow. You shoot an ally, you deal half damage, and they get resistance to the damage type of the attack until their next turn. This can only be applied to a target once per long rest. So here's the deal here, is that when I finished working on the level 10 feature, and I kind of regretted this choice later on, but I stuck with it, I decided to work on the subclasses. Now, this is a terrible idea for scaling, because this means that you have no idea what the end scaling of your class is going to look like, so it means you might scale something awfully wrong at later levels. Because I went to later levels while making the subclasses, because I want to finish the subclasses before I worked on 11th to 20th level. I should have worked on subclasses with the rest of the class. However, I was working in these chunks of basically 1 to 10 subclasses, 11 to 20. And I think it still turned out well anyways. I just need to remember for next time not to do this. As we move on to subclasses, we start with the very first subclass, the Aquatic subclass of the Ranger. Or rather, the Hunter's Home biome Aquatic. You've spent a lot of time in or around water. You learned to survive off the fish, the mollusk, the seawater, and the seaweed. By some gift of nature, you can also breathe underwater. It started when you were young. You could always hold your breath longer than others. However, it's not just holding your breath, it's simply breathing underwater. How weird. Basically, this subclass is built around the principle of unobstructed water combat, alongside some abilities tied to the trident. First, you have Adept Swimmer. When you pick this biome at first level, you gain a swim speed equal to your walking speed. If you already have a swim speed lower than your walking speed, you raise it to be equal to your walking speed. If you already have a swim speed of or above your walking speed, add 15 feet to your swim speed. Expanded Lungs. You can hold your breath underwater, and you can hold your breath for double the time that anyone else could. Or rather, your constitution times 2 plus 1. I think constitution plus 1 is how it works, but yeah. Additionally, if someone is holding their breath within 5 feet of you, you can pull that scene from Pan, where you give them mouth to mouth to fill their lungs. Only if they're willing, though. Basically, fully if you are in water because you can breathe. If you are not in water, say you're in space, because D&D logic weird like that you're able to hold your breath in space rather than just have it immediately sucked out of your lungs violently. Then you can just you just give a certain amount from your own oxygen supply that you're willing to sacrifice. Trident Adept. You gain proficiency with the trident when you attack creatures with the trident or the sphere. In water, you can disengage as a bonus action. You can also use a bonus action to dash towards an enemy to attack them with the trident or the sphere. Free range. This is what I was mentioning earlier with free range, is that you get an ability based on your subclass from free range. Free range, underwater combat. At 5th level, you fight as you regularly would above water whilst underwater. You can fire at a normal range without disadvantage, and long range without automatically failing. Anyone within 10 feet of you who doesn't have a swim speed does not need to roll disadvantage for melee attacks. Undertow. A friendly medium or small creature can share the same space as you when in water. When they are doing this, they can grab you in an area that does not impact swimming, such as the head, arms, or legs, and get dragged around with you using your swim speed. You are such an expert swimmer, you do not need to worry about the penalties for this. Quick advice. Unobstructed movement. Quick advice is a feature you'll get at 11th level. It is kind of like free range, where you get a subclass feature for it too. So you'll be hearing that a lot without knowing what it means until later. It's actually a pretty simple feature, it's just that it has a lot of variability due to the subclasses. Upon reaching 11th level, any allies within 60 feet of you can act unobstructed by the water. They can either swim, which is basically like flying in this case, or walk like normal on the sea floor. They do not suffer from underwater penalties either, like disadvantage from melee attacks if they don't have a swim speed. All allies under this effect still need to maintain oxygen in some way if they can't breathe underwater. Aquatic companions. This one still needs to be replaced. I haven't replaced this one yet because I couldn't think of one to replace it. I started running out of ideas for the aquatic one. When you get to level 15, you can use your Quick Companions feature to tame huge creatures with only a swim speed or that can breathe underwater, which you can ride. Now here's the thing, with the limits to the Quick Companions feature, I do not think this is even possible because it's probably not within the range of possible tameable creatures. Not to mention, my friend kept nagging at me about how this is a terrible idea. To which I say, at 15th level. I mean, this isn't really, I don't know if that... I've never gotten to 15th level, so I can't really scale that, to be honest, but, like, it does not sound that overpowered to me. Anyways. It's not possible, though, because of the CR restrictions to Quick Companions. Sonar. You gain tremor sense for 90 feet when fully submerged in water. However, when you see something in this sense, you need to wait for 6 seconds before you can detect the same spot again. This can only be done if you are not deaf. Alright, so I actually came up with a replacement to the current Aquatic Companions feature. The new Aquatic Companions feature now allows you, at 15th level, to tame creatures of CR 5 with a DC of 30, provided they have a swim speed or they can breathe underwater, which you can ride. For Quick Companions purposes, water elementals also count as a beast-type creature in this scenario. You cannot keep any of the creatures you befriend using this feature. And that would finish off the Aquatic subclass. Now moving on to my favorite subclass. Or one of my favorites, at least. the Hunter's Home biome, Cave. You are a creature of the caves, the wide or narrow gaps in between the stony underground. You were used to crawling around in caverns from a young age, enabling you to squeeze through tight gaps. For some reason, you could also climb in a way few others can climb, finding a grip in anything, even on the ceiling. Cave Crawler. At first level, you already have been able to fit through tight spaces for a while now. When squeezing through a tight space, you go at normal speed. Hang in there. You can find a grip in almost anything. When climbing, you can just grab onto ceilings and stick there. You don't even know what you're grabbing sometimes. And you can even swear that your hands just stick to stuff. But nevertheless, you can climb. Additionally, one medium creature or small creature can hold onto your legs while you do this. If you have a strength or con score of 16 or higher, you can carry 2. Any more and you or they will fall. To be clear, this does not give you a climbing speed, nor increase climbing speed. You'll still use half of your walking speed to climb around. But basically, it's spider climb, just minus the climbing part. So you still move at a slow pace on the ceiling, but I mean, you can stick to ceilings in the first place. Cave Eyes. You gain 45 feet of dark vision if you don't already have it. If you do have dark vision, you gain 15 feet of it. When you reach levels 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, and 18, your dark vision increases by 5 feet. Free range, ceiling shot. At 5th level, you can use your hang in there feature to stick to walls with your feet alone. This allows you to leave your arms free for attacking. Additionally, your climbing speed is increased by 5 feet, and rounds up if you have a walking speed of 25 feet. If you fall prone, you will fall to hit the ground. When you hit the ground, you will take half the damage that anyone else would. Basically, the whole thing about the climbing speed is that you can't climb like anyone else can still, but let's say if you have a climbing speed of 30 feet, which actually you technically would no matter what since the 25 rounds up now, that gets cut in half to 15, you go 15 feet. But with this, you now go 20 feet. So you just go a slight bit faster than the average person. Ceiling Sprint. When you have your hands and feet locked to the ceiling, you can dash as a bonus action. If you do so in front of someone, you have advantage on intimidation against them, unless the creature is spidery in nature. If that is the case, you gain advantage on persuasion checks with them. Additionally, you gain the ability to safely drop quick fixes to allies below for them to use on downed allies. For them to do this, it uses your medicine for the skill check. Still. Quick advice, mind your surroundings. Upon reaching 11th level, all allies within the range of your dark vision who do not have dark vision themselves have their disadvantage from lack of sight negated. Specifically with attacks, provided they're attacking someone within the range of your dark vision. They can even make range attacks without disadvantage at normal range, and attack at disadvantage at long range, rather than automatically missing. Echolocation. Even when you can't see, you can still find your way around, by emitting a quiet ticking sound from the back of your throat. This allows you to have a blind sight for a cone of 60 feet. This can only be done if you are not deaf. Photo Repellent. When you get to level 15, you do not need to be heavily obscured or even lightly obscured to hide. You can hide in blatant sunlight. Perception checks have a disadvantage on finding you, and additionally, they have disadvantage on insight checks against you. And now, saying goodbye to the caves, we move on to the Cursedland. Hunter's Home, Cursedland. You are from a strange, magically altered land, scarred by a curse that mars you yourself, granting you magical capabilities. By some stroke of luck, this doesn't kill you, and even enables you to innately cast arcane magic. Look, I thought if they're gonna be able to cast spells, don't do fucking. Don't do goddamn divine spells. Like, where... Do rangers... Do rangers look particularly divine to you? Do they look religious? Do they look like the religious sort? I mean, some of them, sure, but, like... Do they look like the religious sort? Like, guys who are built on nature. And survival. Sure, religion is a survival tactic. I'm just saying. I'm just saying, okay? I'm just saying. Anyways. There's a whole spell table here. You can look to it for yourself when I put the link to this in the description. Spellcasting. At first level, you mix in some magic into your hunting prowess. Cantrips. You can learn one cantrip of your choice from the Sorcerer spell list. Yes, I chose Sorcerer. Technically, I could have gone with Witch from Bold Spire Secrets, but I wanted to keep this for mostly base game stuff. You gain additional cantrips at levels 5 and 14. I'm not going to read the whole spell casting thing. Basically, I was conflicted with myself for a little bit over whether the spell casting ability should be charisma or constitution, because originally for the tricky, hold on, what was it? It was the tricky trapper? No, hold on. Sorry, give me a moment. My brain is going at the pace of molasses in the winter. Let's see here. And is walking at the pace of pitch. The what was it? The hunting technique, tricky diversion. That's what it was. Right, I was originally gonna mix the trapper one and I was originally gonna mix the trapper one and the magic one, but anyways, the tricky diversion one used to use charisma because I was like, well, it's a sorcerer based thing, so I should use charisma. Actually, it should use constitution. Or so because I did pick charisma at first, and I was like, well, hold on. What if, I mean, I feel like their magic is kind of more, like, rough, so it's like, wouldn't it make sense if it were constitution based, like with the Genasi? And so when I got to the subclass, I thought on that, and I was like, well, either way, I'm gonna have to change the other one. Eventually, my friend who I made the bet with in the first place, swayed me to make it wisdom, because wisdom is based on survival, and, you know, I'm gonna give it to the original ranger players. If you want to play a ranger with magic, you can use your wisdom modifier for this. It's probably better that it didn't branch out into constitution, even as much as I like constitution as a spellcasting modifier, probably because I heavily buff out constitution most of the time. Don't listen to me, though. It's just better to branch out into a different ability, so if I were going to pick anything, it probably would have been between wisdom and charisma, simply put. Empowered Strike. You fire a magic-empowered arrow. You can add 1d4 acid, cold, fire, or lightning damage to your ranged weapon attack. This damage die increases to 1d6 at 5th level, 1d8 at 11th, and 1d10 at 15th. You can do this an amount of times equal to your wisdom modifier times 2 per long rest. I feel like I should have made that per short rest, but we'll see. We'll see when I get this play tested. I'll probably release a few videos on updates for this, but yeah. Magical Archer. Your spellcasting focus is your bow, or ranged weapon. You must have a ranged weapon on you to cast spells with a material focus. Additionally, if you prefer, you can use a druidic focus. This is my inner Celt speaking. Free range. Spellcasting Arrow. At 5th level, when you fire an arrow, you can cast a spell from an approximate area it landed in, unless you critically fail. Even if the arrow missed, you can cast a spell from the same spot as the target of the arrow. If you did hit, you can cast it at touch range on the target, unless the target uses their turn to remove the arrow from themselves. You can do this... It looks like I did not update the amount of times you can do this. Hold on, give me a second. Dude, this is why I always read before I edit stuff. like, I need to read it to people. At least reading it to recording seems to work as well. Because I'm talking aloud, so I have to hear my own amalgamations of text and letters. You can do this an amount of times equal to your ranger, this class, levels per long rest. Magical sense. You can sense all magic within 15 feet of you. If you are playing with the Magic Caster Sense rule, which is a personal rule I use for my own campaigns, this stacks on your regular base for third casters, 5 feet. This doesn't work on anything from the Illusion School of Magic. I actually had to update my own rule when I realized this would probably be a wise thing to implement so people can't just see straight through illusions. Basically, the whole principle is based on, like, the Wheel of Time where the channelers can see the weave. That was the whole principle for that thing. My campaign's heavily based on the Wheel of Time. Not the show, though. The book specifically. I don't know if there's enough difference in that area, because for the things that I was using specifically in my campaign, but I should clarify that it's specifically the show that I was using. Specifically the books, I mean. Quick advice. Vital magic. Upon reaching 5th level, you grant allies within 45 feet a boon of magic. Their attacks count as magical attacks. If they are within 30 feet, they can add their intelligence, wisdom, or charisma mod to damage rolls. Additionally, you can use one remedied quick fix to stabilize every unstable target within a 10-foot diameter, centered on yourself. Hunter's Sense. You can use the weave to hear heartbeats. This enables you to instantly detect someone within 15 feet of you, and grants you advantage on perception checks to find said creature. Additionally, you gain advantage on intimidation checks against them. This does not work if the creature has no heart. When you first gain this ability, you are partially deaf for 10 plus 1d4 minus constitution modifier days, granting you disadvantage on all hearing-based perception checks in this time. Tough Magic. When you reach level 15, you can add your constitution mod to any saving throw using intelligence, wisdom, or charisma for a spell involving damage, or one of the following status effects: blinded, deafened, exhausted, paralyzed, petrified, poisoned, prone, stunned, or unconscious. And that is all for the Cursedland Ranger subclass. And now with that done, we move on to the Hunter's Home biome, one of my favorites, the desert. The dunes are your home. You are guided by the tremors in the ground and the scents on the wind. You are an able tunneler and skilled hunter, used to making places to hide, even in the most open fields. Just a quick side note. Oh god. The background footage for this one? Oh god. I stayed up till like 3, maybe 4 in the fucking morning trying to get background recording. I've been trying to get background footage for this shit because I couldn't find a single game I owned that had a fucking desert in it alongside the ability to shoot a bow or a gun. That's not too modern anyways. And I definitely didn't want to play like CS:GO or something. So I had to go back, and I thought. I was searching through Steam, I was searching through Roblox, I even rammed Battle.net because I still own Diablo 2. Eventually I finally remembered Trove existed after 5 years of not playing it, opened Trove up, and went to play it. So as I started recording, I realized the only range class I actually owned was the Boomer Ranger, which was the first class I played in that game, which had 15 levels. The desert level is like the 4th level, and goes around like, it's for like level 6 players. I was one-hitting creatures so often, to the point that with the dungeons I was running through, with everything I was doing, it was so mind-numbingly fucking boring. And then my game crashed. So I paused the recording, opened it back up, and played some more for about another hour, only to realize I hadn't unpaused the recording when it crashed again. Dear God. Why have the gods abandoned me? God damn. So, in the end, it got so mind-numbingly boring, I went to go try a trial of one of the other classes so I could just shoot my goddamn bow with a challenge. Something that wasn't just me standing there tapping enemy. Troll was normally grindy already, but like, that wasn't grindy, that was just walking around doing nothing. Even the bosses I could one-tap, it was so fucking infuriating that... I'm about to revisit that game, so I need to like find a way to restart the classes, because I wanna restart my class and just play the game as usual again. Tunnel Worm. Yes, this is a reference. At first level, you have a burrow speed of 30 feet, or 35 if you are a small creature. You also gain tremor sense for 45 feet, and additionally, you can mimic the sound of another tunneling creature when using your burrow speed. Now, when I thought about this, I was like, this could either be really funny or really bad. Like, if you're in a dune setting type of world, are worms usually unattracted from each other's sounds, or are they more territorial, or do they outright attack each other? So yeah, you might not want this subclass, or at least not to do that part of the subclass, well, in a campaign setting like that. Which I know sucks, but like, nevertheless. Desert Dance. When walking on any natural surface except stone, you can walk in a way that does not make noise nor trigger tremor sense. Tremor sense cannot detect you, and people have disadvantage on perception checks related to hearing you. Again, a reference. Free range. Ambush arrow. At 5th level, when burrowing, you can make ranged attacks against people above ground. At your normal range cut in half, and your long range cut in half also. When doing this, you'll deal 1d4 extra damage, and have advantage on the attack roll if the target does not know you are there. Additionally, you can make melee attacks at disadvantage while burrowing, unless you have a reach weapon, which forgoes the disadvantage. Suffocation resistance. When burrowing in something that is collapsible, like sand, you do not need to worry about suffocating as much as the next person would. Your breath holding time while burrowing is tripled. You can still suffer normal suffocation effects if you fall unconscious while burrowing in this way. Quick advice. Follow me. Upon reaching 11th level, any allies who walk within 30 feet of you can follow you while burrowing, or gain the benefits of your Desert Dance feature, provided you yourself are doing it, though they move at half speed, rounded down. Sandstorm. When you reach level 15, you can use your dash action to expend your full movement to kick up a bunch of dust. This obscures the vision of all targets you choose within a 60-foot radius, causing them disadvantage on anything that relies on sight, even if they have tremor sense. This lasts until your turn 2 rounds later. You can do this an amount of times equal to your Constitution modifier per long rest. Wild Winds. Nature has sided with you, and the winds guide you. You can go 3 times your movement speed as one action. You can only do this once per long rest. And with that, we finish the Desert Ranger. Thank God it's finally over. Now, for the hunter's home biome, Forest. You're the stereotypical hunter, able and skilled at game and herbs. You know your way around any good forest like the back of your hand, and even if you do not know, it does not take much for you to learn. You are very good at hiding and always have been, shooting arrows from trees over there, or a bush down there. Here's your classic sniper. Professional. At first level, you have learned the trick of being a good hunter. Never be caught in the same place twice. When you hit a target, you gain 15 feet of movement for 1 round. Does not stack. Ambush attack. When you are hiding, or if an enemy is surprised, you deal 1d6 extra damage. This increases to 2d6 at level 5, 3d6 at level 9, 4d6 at 13th level, and 5d6 at 17th level. This does not stack on the same attack as a sneak attack. This is basically the mini rogue subclass inside the ranger. In fact, the ambush attack system right here is literally just if you halved the sneak attack stuff. Free range, merciful end. At level 5, if you bring a target to 0 HP, or they fall unconscious while damaged, You can walk up to them and instantly kill them, assuming they are not important enough to roll death saves. Now, this one was either very overpowered or too situational, so I decided to add an optional feature to replace it. Free range, damning strike. This feature replaces the free range, merciful end feature. When you fire an arrow at someone, provided you hit and they are within your walking speed, you can use your movement speed as a bonus action to run up to them and grab the arrow and viciously stab it in further, provided you make a successful melee attack roll using your dex mod. This allows you to roll 1d6 piercing damage and triggers the ambush attack feature. Wooded Retreat. You try your best to avoid damage and know when to run to avoid taking more damage. When you take damage, as a reaction, you can take the hide action and move half your movement speed. You can do this Constitution modifier times per long rest. Quick advice, blend in. This is a really long one, I'm just gonna say it. Basically, you link arms with everybody, and everybody who's linked to you, or linked to a person linked to you, turns invisible using your camouflage feature. And if one person breaks off the chain, then everyone who's attached to them in the opposite direction from you becomes visible. Cautious motion. You walk very cautiously. This enables you to ignore difficult terrain. Moving target. When you get to level 5, you can make a ranged attack or light melee attack, as in a melee attack with a light weapon, as a free action alongside moving, provided you move your max walking speed at most and you aren't moving through difficult terrain, even using your cautious motion feature. You cannot do this if you are dashing, except as an action. And that brings the Forest Hunter to an end. And now another one of my favorites. The Mountain Ranger. The mountainous highlands are a place you call home, be it a cold mountain peak or a dry desert plateau. You have grown tough and good at getting upwards quickly. You are also good at getting the jump on people, literally. Unsuspecting travelers commonly fall prey to landslides. You are the landslide. The Goat. At first level, you gain a climbing speed equal to your walking speed. You have advantage on all athletics checks against falling, and you take 25% less fall damage, rounded up, than anyone else would. Muscle Shot. You can choose to use your strength for ranged weapon attacks instead of dexterity. If you use a long shot ability or such other abilities, you just double the strength modifier. Additionally, you gain proficiency with the Warpick, Warhammer, and Maul, alongside the Sling, which does 1d6 damage instead of 1d4 damage for you. Unarmored Defense. You are naturally tough, and even though you are not as tough as barbarians or as lithe as a monk, you are still a force to reckon with. When not wearing armor, you gain an armor class as shown below, 8 plus dex plus constitution. Free range. Punching Shot. At 5th level, you fire arrows with absolute sheer strength to the point that it can knock people around and stagger them. Upon impact, you can push someone 5 feet in the opposite direction of where you shot from. This is enough force to make someone lose their grip. Anyone with a climbing speed must make an athletics check to maintain their grip, and anyone without a climbing speed must make the same check at disadvantage. The DC is the same as your attack roll that you hit them with. Goat Legs. Your climbing speed is increased by 15 feet, and you can jump 2 times higher and farther than the average person. Instead of taking 25% less fall damage, you now take 50% less fall damage. Quick advice. Tough Love. Upon reaching 11th level, you can attack an ally within 30 feet of you. They gain resistance to the damage you deal them for 1d4 turns. Additionally, you can use Remedied Quick Fix to heal the target of any damage you dealt them, if they are within range. Highland Horror. You have accumulated a reputation of being a terrifying individual. This enables you to scream from a high place, and anyone below you, who you choose, below you as in elevation, who can hear, must roll a wisdom save against your scream DC. If they fail, they take Constitution modifier D6 psychic damage and are now afraid of you. On success, they take half the damage and are immune to the effects of this for 24 hours. You can do this twice per long rest. Your scream DC is 10 plus intimidation, charisma. Cliff Leaper. When you reach level 15, you can jump from a height of at least 20 feet onto an enemy below you. You can make a melee attack action while doing this. If you hit, you deal 1 die of extra damage, and you deal 1 more die per 10 feet of falling from above your target. And you take no damage upon dealing damage to them. If you fail to hit them, your fall damage resistance from Goat Legs is negated, but you take 75% damage instead of 100% damage as applied by your The Goat feature. The fun thing about this is that my friend told me that with the Cave subclass, I would be messing with the jumping barbarian economy. Well, with this one, I said, I am the leaping barbarian economy. And then I realized that I just made a viable double team without having two barbarians on the same team. Where you can have this and a barbarian, and both of them will do the leaping barbarian strat. This is starting to remind me a little bit of Team Fortress 2 with the ranger and the demo... with the ranger and with the soldier and the demo man. The soldier would be the barbarian and the ranger would be the demo man. But, actually, that really works really well because the demo man has sticky traps and rangers have traps and soldiers definitely a barbarian, so... Huh. But yeah, I did not give them a competitor. I gave them an ally. Anyways, that's all for the Mountain Barbarian Ranger thing. Oh god. And then onto the plains, Hunter's home. You are not the most quiet, but you are very, very quick. You can run across open fields with ease, chasing down any poor fellow who happened to piss you off. You are not as fast as the wind, you are the wind. Traveling at top speed. You like to let people know when they escape that you could have killed them, but they were spared on a whim. So I don't know if I was saying this earlier, I was trying to discourage Sword Ranger, and then I completely changed my mind here. Well, I didn't really. I discouraged Sword Ranger with the proficiencies, but here I do encourage some melee build for Ranger. Run like the wind. At first level, you are a threat for the simple reason you move fast. Really fast. Your movement speed is increased by 15 feet. This increases by 5 feet at levels 5, 11, and 15. The Plains Punisher. You attack within melee range to deny an enemy attack. You can make a melee attack with a light weapon as a reaction to getting an opportunity attack within melee range. If you hit, you gain resistance to the damage dealt by the opponent. Free range, close aim. At level 5, you have gotten good at aiming your bow within the close ranges. You do not suffer from disadvantage when firing attacks at a target or their allies within 5 feet. Additionally, take your weapon's normal range and multiply it by 0.2, rounded to the closest 5 feet increment. When attacking within that range, you deal double damage. Does not stack on other damage multipliers except crits. All in. You go all in when you bring out your melee. When you attack with your melee weapon, you go into some form of rage. While in this state that lasts for 1 minute, 10 rounds, you have the following benefits. Your melee attacks deal 1 extra die of damage. You apply your Constitution modifier to every melee attack roll and damage roll, alongside the regular bonus. You deal an additional die of damage towards the last person who attacked you. You gain advantage on all dexterity and Constitution saving throws. However, you have disadvantage on range attacks at your normal range and automatically miss when firing at your long range. You can do this Constitution modifier times per long rest. Quick advice, Swarm Tactics. Upon reaching 11th level, anyone within 30 feet of you who attacks with melee weapons while you are using your all-in feature gains the same benefits as you. If an ally attacks the same target as you on your previous turn, you can attack as a reaction to your allies attacking. The funny thing about this one is that I was originally going to make the Plains one more like a shepherd of some sort. And then, well, you know the Demo Man comparison I made earlier? This is fucking Demo Night now. Dear God. No escape. When you reach level 15, you can strike fear into the hearts of the strongest, because they see something in you that isn't human. Something wild and feral. Pick a target who has exchanged damage with you. You dealt damage to them, and they dealt damage to you. If they leave melee range from you, they will take 1d10 psychic damage per 5 feet, outside of melee range and away from you. They stop taking this damage after they leave the range of your movement speed. You can only do this once per long rest. God, it is Demo Night. And now with that out of the way, let's get on to the complete and total fuck you subclass. The Hunter's Home Biome. Tundra. You use simplistic science to reason with nature. You might not be the fastest, but who needs that when you can slow down your enemies? A simple compound that you know how to make can instantly crystallize someone's feet. then their knees, then their chest, and finally, their head as they struggle for oxygen. People hate you, but does hatred matter? No. Survival matters. Icicle Arrow. You use a simple compound that causes a chain reaction that crystallizes liquids and on top of surfaces. When you hit somebody with a ranged weapon attack, you deal 1d6 extra cold damage. After taking damage, the enemy must make a con saving throw against your freeze DC. On failure, their walk speed suffers a minus 5 feet penalty, which lasts for 30 seconds, 5 rounds, and gets reset if they're hit by another icicle arrow. If this subtracts their walking speed to 0, then you subtract from any other movement speeds. If they have no other movement speeds, or hit 0 feet in all movement speeds, the target freezes over and cannot breathe until they are unfrozen, which depends on your complete freeze time, or if they are thawed out by fire damage or a heat source. You can make an amount of compound listed below, which becomes inert after 24 hours. When using these ice arrows, you must use your bonus action to apply the compound. Your freeze DC is 8 plus proficiency plus your intelligence mod. Your complete freeze time is 1d4 plus intelligence mod minutes. And compounds per long rest is equal to 10 plus your ranger level times 2. There are some parentheses in there that read for yourself. Seriously, please. I mean, I'm doing my own work a disservice here, mostly because I stutter fuck tons, and I'm just editing that off of recording. Also, sorry for swearing so much if that's not your taste. I just have a tendency to do that. Free range. Quick cover. At 5th level, using the moisture in the air, you can create a small wall of ice using an icicle arrow, provided you are not in a desert or arid place, or if you have water nearby. When you shoot an icicle arrow, the ground before your feet freezes a little, creating half cover. Additionally, if you shoot water, you can create an ice platform about 2.5 feet in radius, or 5 feet in diameter, enough to hold a medium or small-sized creature that can sustain intelligence mod times 1d100 pounds. Just to clarify, you roll this, you roll the 1d100 in the moment. Cold-hearted. You have a fearsome look about yourself. You can make a roll contest as a bonus action or reaction to when someone enters the range against anyone who you choose within melee range. You rolling intimidation and they themselves rolling insight. On failure, the target takes 1d10 cold damage and is now afraid of you. On success, they take half damage and are immune to the fear effect for 24 hours. Quick advice. Winter's brutality. Upon reaching 11th level, any allies within 30 feet of you can use the cold-hearted feature, but only as a bonus action. Alternatively, if they are within 5 feet of you, they can attack as a bonus action. Frostbite. You are a threat even at melee range. When attacking someone within melee range, your weapon deals 1d6 plus intelligence modifier extra cold damage on hit. If hit, they must roll a constitution save against your freeze DC. On failure, they cannot take a reaction. Winter is coming. Don't think on that too much. When you reach 15th level, you have the force of winter itself on your side. You can manipulate the temperature with your instantly freezing compounds. You can throw one of your compounds into water to freeze over the surface for at most 1 mile. You can throw it straight on a person within melee range to deal no damage, yet have their movement speed rounded up. Additionally, if it is winter, you can deal intelligence mod d6 cold damage with your compound arrow attacks. And that completes the Tundra subclass of my improved ranger. And finally, for the last subclass of the ranger subclasses, we have reached the Underdark. By the way, a slight side note, I know the Underdark isn't in every single world, and that's why I considered not even including it at first. My friends, they convinced me to add it because it is in quite a few worlds, though. If it isn't in your world, just simply use it as like an alternative to the cave subclass. That's all I have to say. You hail from the Underdark, home of terrifying beasts and glowing mushrooms, alongside various lovely species like the Drow, Durgar, give me a second, Sverfneblin, and more. You weaken your opponents through deadly and damaging poisons. To be fair, Svirfneblin are not that bad. But anyway, Poisoner. At first level, you have learned how to make poisons to dip your arrows in. You gain proficiency with the Poisoner's Kit, and any poisons you make with it are personally tested on yourself, mostly, using your poison DC. Additionally, you can dip arrows in drow poison, which you can do every short rest or long rest. You dip an amount listed below, which loses potency after 8 hours. Dippable arrows, proficiency plus wisdom. Poison DC. 8 plus proficiency plus constitution modifier. Superior dark vision. Your eyes are the strongest there are, stronger than magic. You gain 60 feet of dark vision if you don't already have it. If you do, you gain 30 feet of dark vision, and this dark vision can pierce magical darkness, and you are immune to going blind through magical means. Optional. Bioluminescence. Replaces superior dark vision. You are bioluminescent. This bioluminescence lights an area of 60 feet around yourself. 30 feet brightly, 30 feet dimly. This light shines at half strength through magical darkness. 30 feet around yourself, 15 feet dimly, 15 feet brightly. Or the other way around. You can cover this with heavy clothing, such as winter clothing, to block the effects when necessary. Free range. Paralyzing venom. At 5th level, you can make a poison that paralyzes you. You can dip an amount of arrows in every long rest, the amount is shown below. Upon hitting the target, you deal 1d4 poison damage, and they must roll a con save at disadvantage. If they fail the con save, they are paralyzed, lasting for Constitution modifier rounds. Pacifying pheromone. You have discovered the way to imitate the pacifying spores of the myconids. You fire an arrow with a glass container on the end, which breaks upon hitting the ground, releasing a calming pheromone. On miss, the arrow hits the ground uselessly. On hit, the arrow hits the ground near them, and the container shatters, dispersing a pheromone for a 15-foot radius. Anyone within the radius must roll a wisdom saving throw against your poison DC. Upon failing the wisdom save, they become stunned for 1 minute, 10 rounds. They can attempt to make the save at the end of their turns for each round until it ends. You gain an amount of these arrows listed below, which you regain after a short or long rest. It is required that you have a glass bottle to create these arrows, but luckily, pheromones don't go bad for a while. Dippable pheromone arrows. Proficiency plus wisdom. Days of potency. Wisdom modifier. Quick advice. Natural flavor. Upon reaching 11th level, allies within a 60-foot radius can add 1d6 poison damage to their attacks, and any hit target must roll a con save against your poison DC. If they fail to con save twice, they're poisoned. Additionally, your quick fixes cure paralyzed, poisoned, and stunned status effects, either when stabilizing an unconscious creature, when healing one, or you can just use it independently for the sole purpose of clearing those status effects. Antitoxin mask. You've learned how to create a makeshift gas mask using a variety of herbs, mushroom, and cloth. To construct it, it costs at least 2 gold pieces worth of herbs and mushrooms, and 10 GPs worth of cloth and glass, 12 GP in total. It requires the time, dedication, and full attention of the spare time of your long rest. Those 2 hours that you don't use for sleeping. Unless you're an elf, which actually lines up with this because drow are elves, god damn it. While wearing it, you gain the following effects. Advantage against all airborne toxins, poisons, diseases, and viruses. Immunity to airborne poison damage. Advantage on intimidation checks if someone saw you in the gas mask and hasn't seen your face otherwise, or doesn't know who you are. However, your speech is muffled. People must roll perception or insight to understand your speech. They can do so at advantage if they are a friend of yours. Or if someone has telepathy with you, or a similar spell, this can be bypassed. And perception checks related to hearing and sight are made at disadvantage. Most of the antitoxin mask is permanent, but you will need to replace the filter after an hour of use. You can make a filter when foraging for parts as part of a short rest. You can have up to wisdom plus proficiency modifier filters at a time. Toxic Mist Jug. Yes, I made the Girardi from TF2, but it's poison instead of piss. You're welcome, Sniper Mains. I still think that's the cheapest class in the game, because all you have to do is tap on someone from a distance. Anyways, unless you're using Huntsman, or you're like, what's his name? I can't remember. If you're doing something fun with it, then it's different. But anyways, when you reach 15th level, you can throw a glass bottle at the ground, releasing a toxic mist. Everyone within a 15-foot radius of where the jug is thrown must make a Constitution saving throw against your poison save. Unless they have an antitoxin mask. If they have a different kind of gas mask, they roll at advantage. Anyone, including yourself and allies, unless you or they wear the antitoxin masks, in this radius, who fails the save is now suffering from an effect that is rolled on the effect table listed below, and takes 8d10 poison damage. On success, they take half damage. The mist stays for 30 seconds, 5 rounds. Anyone still in the mist must make a save at the end of the turn. Additionally, you can use it as a thrown weapon rather than throwing it at the ground beneath your own feet. The statistics are shown below. Just look at the thing for it. I'm not gonna read that. You only have an amount of these jugs equal to your wisdom modifier divided by 2 at a time, which you can gain at the end of a short rest. You must roll a 1d8 to determine the effects randomly. And by randomly, I mean however randomly your dice are. 1 through 3, they're simply poisoned. 4, the DC has a -2 penalty. If they rolled higher than that, they succeed, but they are unconscious on failure. 5, the poison mist is flammable. On igniting it, anyone in the area of the mist must take 5d10 fire damage. 6, plus 2d10 poison damage. 7, hallucinations. Fear towards everyone. Everyone. 8, the poison attacks those with exposed skin. This makes it ignore antitoxin masks and other gas masks, provided you have exposed skin. And that concludes the final subclass of the Ranger. God, I can take like a week break now. Oh my god. I've been like non-stop doing 3 classes per day, and it's been like the whole day per time I make the class because of how many times I have to edit the recording and how the fucking video stuff works. And just before we continue on to levels 11 through 20, I need to talk about something important. Now, if you were thinking about donating, even while extra money is nice, there are people way worse off in the world than us right now. For instance, the topic of which I will be speaking of, Palestine. While I would appreciate money myself, I would rather you give any money that you would give me to a Palestinian fund to protect the children and adults facing horrific events going on there. For a simple description of what is going on in Palestine: colonization. And colonization, if it is successful, always results in the killing off of the indigenous peoples that live in the place before the colonizers, such as America or Australia. So if you value and respect human life, you should donate to a Palestinian fund to help people escape the bombing. Or maybe join an organization if you're short on cash, such as Jewish Voices for Peace, or take action by boycotting. If you need more information, you can go to the UN articles on it or the Human Rights Watch, who also has articles on it, and is an internationally trusted organization. Just remember, whatever is going on, whatever is the case, there is never, ever an excuse to bomb children. And that is what is happening in Gaza and the West Bank. Maybe to put it into perspective, a Wikipedia article, and yes, I know Wikipedia is neutral, claims that there was 70,000 tons of bombs dropped on Gaza, which is smaller than East London and New York City. That is more tonnage than was dropped on London, Habsburg, and Dresden combined in World War II. That is a little over double the tonnage of bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So please, help fund a Palestinian organization. Whether it's to get a family out of Gaza, to give food to people, or to help let the Palestinians free themselves. I do not need that money as much as they need it. And maybe you should think that too. Putting that aside, there are some channels that you should check out. And remember, you are not alone. There are so many out there who also fight for Palestine, and the world will change soon. And now that we get back to the rest of the Ranger, quick advice. At 11th level, you can grant guidance and advice to your allies mid-combat. If an ally is within 5 feet of you, they gain advantage on melee attacks and crit on 19 or 20, or increase crit range by 1 if 19 is already a crit for them. You don't suffer any penalty for being within 5 feet of an enemy if there is an ally within 5 feet of you while making ranged attacks. Additionally, you gain another benefit from your subclass: Stalker. When you reach level 12, you have learned what truly is the strength of the various humanoid species: persistence. After an hour of following your target, if they know you are there, the target gains 1 tier of exhaustion. You do too, however you can expend a quick fix to remove it, only in this case. You can keep doing this for as long as necessary. At this point, you have advantage on stealth against them if you wish to sneak away. Additionally, you get to add bonus damage when you attack someone with at least one tier of exhaustion. You have advantage to hit and deal an extra dex times 2 damage on hit. You can stalk an amount of targets equal to your constitution modifier. Fight dirty. When you reach level 13, you have gotten used to using anything to get the upper hand in a fight. When within melee range of somebody, you can do one of the following tactics. Claws and Teeth. When someone gets within melee range of you, you can use your bonus action to attempt to grapple them. On success, you can make an unarmed strike while they are grappled, using your dexterity mod and a 1d8 for damage rolls. And you can do the same on future turns as a bonus action while they are still grappled, using dex for the attack rolls. They have disadvantage on getting ungrappled on their next turn, and you can use a reaction to unarmed strike them until they attempt to ungrapple themselves. Pocket Sand. If you are on top of a material that can be burrowed into using burrowing speed, you can grab some of that from the ground as a bonus action and throw it into your enemy's eyes. This requires you to make a melee attack using your dex as your attack mod. On hit, blinding the enemy until they take a bonus action to unblind themselves. Repeatedly kick. You can make an unarmed strike against someone. On hit, you knock them prone. While they are prone, you and everyone around them can unarmed strike them as a bonus action. For unarmed striking this particular target that you knocked prone, the unarmed strike damage die increases to 1d6 and can use either strength or dexterity. If they get back up after someone kicked them down, you have advantage on unarmed striking them to knock them prone again. You can do, or initiate, any of these an amount of times equal to your dex mod per short rest. Fearful Reputation. When you reach level 14, you have gained an aura of fear around yourself, being a mysterious and potentially murderous hunter and all. Once per long rest, you can choose to force everyone within 60 feet to roll a wisdom save against your fear DC. Choose a number of your hit dice to expend. You roll these to deal psychic damage, dealing full damage to those who fail the wisdom save and half to those who succeed. Additionally, if they fail, they are afraid of you. Additionally, I use a lot of additionallys. When someone is within melee range of you, you can force them to roll a wisdom save against your fear DC. If they fail, they gain the afraid condition towards you. You can do this twice per short rest. Fear DC is 8 plus proficiency plus dex, or 8 plus proficiency plus wisdom, or 8 plus proficiency plus constitution. Survival of the fittest. Upon reaching level 15, you gain the ability to tough out extreme situations. When you are at a quarter of your health or below that, you gain the following benefits. You gain 1d10 plus constitution modifier temporary hit points, which you can re-roll at the end of every turn as a bonus action to replace the original. Walking speed increases by 5 feet per con mod. You can add constitution to your melee attacks. You could choose to replace your AC bonus of dex with constitution. Additionally, you gain a weariness of those around you that others can easily understand. When you're on 10% HP, you have advantage on all checks to prolong someone from killing you. If you succeed on any check to prolong your livelihood, you are conscious when facing death saves. Your Fearful Reputation feature does not work if you do this until you are no longer below 10% HP. Counter Sniper. At 16th level, you know how best to deal with other archers. When you see someone within the normal range of your bow who attacked or attempted to attack one of your allies with a ranged weapon, you can use your reaction to attack them at advantage, or attack at advantage on your next turn. If they have the loading property on their ranged weapon after they attempted to attack an ally and forgot to reload or couldn't, you can also attack them at advantage as a reaction when they are loading on their next turn. You are used to being up and at it quickly. You cannot be surprised while you are conscious. You can add your proficiency bonus to your initiative, and you fire ranged weapons provided as loaded as a reaction when someone is revealing themselves to attack you if they're within 20 feet of you. If you hit, up to Charisma plus proficiency of allies of your choice you choose within 60 feet are not surprised. 'Tis but a scratch. Sorry, I had to do the voice. When you get to level 17, you have become hardy enough to walk off damage. When you're taking damage, you can trigger a protective mode that allows you to worry about injuries later. When triggering this mode, you can track damage off to the side from your health. When that number is equal or greater than your current HP, you fall unconscious, and go into death saves if it is greater than your current HP. But for reasons of abilities based on current HP and damage from enemies or yourself, you are still counted as having the same health as you had when you trigger this ability. You can do this con mod times per long rest. When you trigger this mode after taking damage, when at or below half health, you gain resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage for a number of rounds equal to your constitution modifier. You must wait until you take a short rest and expend hit dice, or a long rest, before you can use this feature again. Now, here's a few funny ones, for level 18, the features, I kind of switched around like the second part of the names for most of these, several times. Hunting Professional. At 18th level, you've obtained enough skill and wisdom to become the most professional hunter you can be. You can use your perception rather than dexterity and proficiency bonus for ranged weapon attacks. You can add your con modifier to all melee attacks on top of strength or dexterity. You gain immunity to the poison status effect and are resistant to poison damage. You have advantage against any form of virus, disease, poison, etc., and you can double your con mod on any rolls against them or related to them. You gain expertise in 2 of the following skills: acrobatics, animal handling, athletics, intimidation, sleight of hand, stealth, or survival. If you don't have proficiency in one or both of the skills that you pick, then you simply get proficiency instead of expertise. Optional: hermit expertise. Replacing the hunting professional feature, you are respected wisdom. The people around the world have heard of you in some context, and most respect and revere you. From this, you gain the following benefits. You have advantage on intelligence, wisdom, or charisma checks to get someone to leave you alone, or to get someone to listen to you. You have advantage on all persuasion checks related to bartering, trading, etc. You can grant 1 inspiration to somebody per long rest. Your max remedied quick fix gets multiplied by 2. You can add your wisdom modifier to attack rolls against blood-marked foes. You gain expertise in 2 of the following skills: animal handling, insight, medicine, nature, perception, or survival. If you don't have proficiency in one or both of the skills you pick, then you simply get proficiency instead of expertise. Optional: natural community. Replacing the hunting professional feature, you are a supportive member of the natural community around you. This might look like a small village in the trees, or a bunch of animals that you like to hang out with. You gain the following benefits. You can have double the amount of quick companions that you could before, and keep double the amount if you picked the Beastmaster hunting technique. You can use quick companions feature on huge creatures, but cannot keep them if you have the Beastmaster hunting technique. You do not add proficiencies when trying to use your quick companions feature on a huge creature, and you can only gain 1 huge creature at a time. DC 30. You have advantage on persuasion checks to befriend people. You gain expertise in 2 of the following skills: acrobatics, animal handling, athletics, intimidation, insight, perception, persuasion, or performance. If you don't have proficiency in both or one or both of the skills you pick, then you simply gain proficiency with them instead. And then skipping level 19 here, the only level I skipped. I could have skipped a lot more, I feel like I should have. Marked for Death. Upon achieving 20th level, you've achieved what is the pinnacle of hunting. Amazing job. Pick 1 person within 60 feet or the normal range of your ranged weapon if you have it currently equipped. That person has vulnerability to any damage from attacks made by you, and you can add any 1 ability modifier to attacks that you choose. If this overlaps with another ability modifier thrown in on top of the main one, simply double it. Example, you pick Constitution modifier and you have a Constitution boost from the Survival of the Fittest feature. This lasts for 1 minute, 10 rounds. You can do this once per long rest. And now, finally, it's over. Oh my god. In total, so far, this has taken me 44 days to work on. The initial class was just 31. Oh my god. Anyways, I'll put the various links needed in this video in the description. This is the first time I've edited something to this extent, so I apologize for all the weird cracks and stuff in the noise. And just in general, some other notes. I will be updating various names and stuff to the Ranger, so it might not be consistent with this video anymore by certain points, but you should still be able to recognize it. There will be different versions of the Ranger made at various points, especially with if I actually do get help from people playtesting. And I will put a link to a Discord in the description for a playtesting experience. Alternatively, you could just comment below on how you experienced the playtesting of this, and changes you might want. For the most part, this channel is meant to be a video game channel, that I was sharing videos with my friends on, but now I think I might start publicizing my videos, provided the people in the videos are okay with that. Of course, I will always be doing Dungeons & Dragons stuff, so occasionally I will add more D&D stuff. And over the process of this, I had several ideas for other class remakes, because now I want to do that, because I am addicted to remaking classes now. So yeah, I'm not doing that anytime soon. Oh, please no. But, it might come in the future. It depends on what class I kind of want the most. The Ranger was obviously the most necessary one, because I'm so sorry to anyone who actually does like Ranger, but I just hate it. And, yeah. In the process, I've also renamed the book, whatever you want to call it, to Yara's Guide to Being a Ranger. This is for various reasons. Mostly the reason that... Mostly for the reason that, that is the name of the character that is on the cover of the book. Well, sort of book. It's not gonna... it's... Yeah. Anything I make of this variety will be completely free, because I don't like putting stuff behind paywalls. And, yeah. That's about it. Brr.